just about Tibet. It's about issues that are very global, like issue about environmental issue and as I say, issue of languages. I think we all, have this issue of identity at heart. We all live in a global world. We all travel too much and sometimes forget where we come from.
I think that's an important point to bring up about sort of an artist having some kind of grounding and something that relates to the region. And I think you were mentioning the other night too that that's one of the reasons why you collect Bangladeshi artists and Bangladeshi artists that have a grounding in tradition. But I think it would be very interesting to have an artist's perspective on what Fabio is saying about this duality between tradition, modernity, and identity, and especially because, Rashid, you've spent a lot of time both living in the West and you came back to Lahore was it in 2001 or 2002?
1995.
Oh, sorry, 1995. I thought it was later. But anyway, after having spent a considerable amount of time in Toronto, Boston, New York, Brooklyn, I was wondering if you could also speak a bit further about what you're seeing in sort of the Pakistan scene, which, I can throw in a little bit of an anecdote here. For us, we actually met Rashid in 2005 on a similar type of trip. It was a fact-finding trip to basically explore the larger South Asian art scene and to develop it further. And so, many of the artists that we had met during that trip have now really flourished in the international art world and are now seen in biennales, and are represented internationally, are shown in museum shows. And Rashid, I was wondering if you could give us a little bit of a context about using that very ironic work that you had produced called I Love Miniature to talk about tradition, modernity, and in relation to what Fabio was mentioning about what appeals to him from his gallery program.
First of all, I would like to congratulate Rashid and Nadia and everyone else involved in putting together this event, this historic event for the art scene over here. This is the unfortunate reality, the issue of identity that artists from mostly the non-Western world have to face again and again. I feel like sharing a quote from Woody Allen's film Reconstructing Harry. Tradition is an illusion of permanence. And it's mostly applied, I think, over here in the regions which are developing or often referred as third world. If an artist from, let's say, 1960s America produces minimalist work, nobody will object that your Renaissance painting was never nothing like this. But time and time again, as in my career as a student and teacher and an artist, you come across this question, does this look Pakistani or not? And I'm sure artists and young artists and modern artists of this region also has faced similar questions. Having said that, there's no escape from it either. So I grew up artistically, thinking and learning and coming to the conclusion that making a work about critically engaging with your issue of identity is your identity. It's not in the appearances. Appearances are deceptive. Content perhaps lies beneath the surface. So I sort of came to terms with it I knew that I cannot escape it. No matter how much I like to do it, I cannot escape it. The entire 90s, the time when only new miniature was the only significant trend or movement from Pakistan, which was recognized, appreciated, not only overseas, but as well as within Pakistan. So this was a sulking time for people like me, for all the artists like me who wanted to not conform to stylistic conventions as an excuse to become or make work that would look authentically Pakistani or from South Asia. It's ironic that in the end, what became my breakthrough work look like a miniature painting. The work that you're referring to, which became a topic of discussion after I had produced it, called I Love Miniature, in which I chose a portrait of a Mughal emperor, which I created with the help of miniaturized small images of billboards from the city of Lahore, my immediate experience of the broad visual character. So this is how I eventually, with a journey of 10 years, came to terms with this whole issue, and then ironically subverted the very image from the tradition of miniature painting. And I'm really happy to know now that in the last 10 years how the things have, I think in South Asia in general, the way we have come a long way. And now I think artists, we have seen in this art fair also, that how many artists are producing works which may not look so-called, Bangladeshi, the way they would have been questioned 10 years back. So I think in that sense we have come a long way, and I think the new generation is even less burdened with this issue.
Rashid, going back to your point, because you've been working in this milieu, who are the primary collectors of your work? Are they Pakistanis? Are they Europeans? Are they Americans?
Whoever likes my work.
I guess that makes sense. And
so I didn't try to create collectors of my work. People became collectors of my work, and I think I don't think of an audience in that sense. You cannot avoid the question of audience entirely. When you're making work, I think I would confess that somehow it does affect you. If you're making a work which that's going to a solo show in US, somehow it might affect you to some extent. But one tries to make work which is revolves around the core questions that you raise in your practice, and then let your readers, let people decide who wants to be my audience or not.
I think that's a very good point. And I'll ask Fabio a similar question. Are the collectors of your base, are they primarily Asians, Europeans? Because it goes back to a point that I'd like to make.
I think generally speaking, I would say the majority of the collectors are non-Asian still. There's interest, but I think the majority of, and some of the collectors that, we have my mother has been in this field for almost 50 years, myself for more than 25, so we have long-standing collectors of classical, and some of them have made a transition into collecting contemporary as well. Not many, but a few. But I think the majority, in a way, it's still disappointing because, of course, one would like to develop more collectors from the region. But it's still very much non-Asian collectors.
The reason that I ask is because what I've noted, too, in our field and also in handling works by Rashid or many of your contemporaries, is that we're finding many of the collectors are actually Western, are European, Italian, French, as I mentioned before, Italian, French, Swiss, German. And going back again to the notions of identity and tradition, I once had a discussion with a dealer and artist, Peter Nagy of Nature Mort Gallery, and he told me that he sometimes struggled with trying to move or sell works to his international collectors that didn't have something that was very glaring or overtly South Asian about it. And what he mentioned somewhat ironically was that for the collector outside of South Asia, it was something that either had to be representative or pictorial, and perhaps even mentioned, an artist like Vasudeo Gaitonde or Mohammed Kibriya might not necessarily have as receptive an audience abroad as they would maybe in the region, but as maybe say M.F. Hussain or Zain al-Abidin. And by contrast, I think with local collectors, such as Mr. Sobhan, there is freedom from such restraints, as Rashid was mentioning, with the younger artists, and there's a much wider acceptance of different visual languages, in part because there isn't that notion of having to prove something to an outside world. And Deepak, I wanted to say, I think your 2005 show had a wider influence on collecting in Europe, but I wonder if you sense, is there a type of Orientalism creeping in, into which artists are chosen for international exhibitions, biennales, because of the overt nature of their South Asianness? Is that something that you can comment on?